Imagine the shock when a guy suddenly retreats at the precise instant his emotions hit their strongest peak. Why does he vanish emotionally as the bond grows more profound? And why does he exhibit this behavior specifically with the women he truly music treasures? Carl Jung devoted decades exploring the male soul and revealed something shocking. Men do not run from challenging partners. They do not avoid drama. They do not flee from complexity. Her music, they pull back from one specific trait in a woman. And this music trait often represents the very quality you consider your biggest strength. Most women fail to understand what really happens inside a man when he builds emotional walls. They assume he is not ready. A music, they believe he fears commitment. They think he lacks emotional depth. But Jung discovered the real psychological truth behind it. A man who cares deeply for you, a music, steps back, not because he feels indifferent or unprepared for a relationship. Our music creates distance because you make him confront something he has hidden his whole life. You start a psychological process in him that Jung described as the most dangerous moment in a man's journey. Music, and here is the sad part. Every relationship strategy you have learned makes the problem worse. Every piece of advice like give him space is music wrong. Every idea like be mysterious is fault. Every suggestion such as let him pursue you is completely incorrect because no one has explained the truth of deep psychology. Music, what is really happening in his subconscious when he meets a woman like you? No one has explained why men avoid exactly the women who affect them the most. No one has explained why your emotional honesty scares him. Her music, and no one has shown that what you see as a flaw in yourself is actually your greatest psychological power. Jung found that there is a specific trait in certain women that men unconsciously fear, not because the trait is negative, but because it is so strong that it forces a man to face his inner self. And most men are not ready for that confrontation. In the following minutes, you will understand what happens in a man's mind when he meets a woman who carries this specific quality. You will discover why he pulls back even if he loves you, perhaps music exactly because he loves you. You will understand the Jungian viewpoint that explains why emotional depth creates music distance in men. And you will master a psychological strategy that changes everything. Not to manipulate him, not to play games, but to finally understand what is really happening in his mind when he shuts down emotionally. Music, but I must warn you. This insight will be hard because you will see he is not fleeing from you. He is fleeing from the person he would have to music become by your side. He is escaping from his own emotional power that you draw out of him. And the irony is that the more honest you are, the more you show your true self, the more you force him to see his own brokenness. Jung termed this the reflection of the unconscious. You mirror back to him everything he has failed to integrate within himself. Music. And that is the reason he keeps his distance from you. Not because you are too much, not because you are too intense, not because you are too sensitive, but because you are complete. And his incompleteness becomes unbearable in your presence. So, if you are ready to understand why men pull away specifically from the women they cherish the most, let's explore what Carl Jung uncovered about the male psyche and what no one has ever shared with you, music, regarding the deep psychology of men. Before we proceed, I want you to do something vital. If what I have said touches music you deeply, if you realize that you are exactly the woman who confronts men with their wholeness, then type one word in the comments right now. Reflection. Why is this so crucial? Jung discovered that change happens not only through understanding, but through intentional action. Music, by typing this word, you trigger a psychological movement within yourself. You announce to your subconscious, I am ready to witness the truth. I am ready to understand what is truly happening. This basic ritual of writing reflection music is the primary step toward absorbing this wisdom. It is as if you were finalizing a contract with your own unconscious. Jung called this the music conscious involvement in one's own process of individuation. Most women absorb information without action. They watch music clips, agree, think it's interesting, and then nothing in their existence shifts. But the women who truly evolve, who fundamentally alter their relationship patterns, are the ones who engage actively, who take deliberate steps, who signal to the world, I am not here just music to observe. I am here to evolve. When you write reflection in the comments, 3 things occur on a psychological level. First, you confirm to yourself that this insight is accurate. You acknowledge your own history. Music. Second, you deliver a message to your unconscious that you are prepared to embrace this power within you, that you no longer think you are too much or too intense. Third, you link with thousands of other women in this circle who are going through the exact same situation, who understand what it means to challenge a man with your sincerity, who know how it feels to be adored and avoided simultaneously. Observe music. The comments. Do you see how many women have already typed reflection? Music. These are the women who comprehend. These are the women who are no longer casualties of their relationship dynamics, but intentional architects of their reality. Music. And here is the influential part. When you write reflection, you condition your brain to become more observant of the signals in your own romantic life. You will start to identify when you trigger his patterns. You will grasp when he is fleeing from his own depth. This intentional observation is what distinguishes the women who duplicate the same habits from the women who shatter cycles and establish authentic deep bonds with men who are ready for growth. So music. Write reflection in the comments now, not for my sake, not for this channel, but for yourself, as a manifesto to the universe that you are ready to perceive the truth. Music. And embrace your psychological authority. Do it now before we move forward, because what I will reveal next will only function for women who have already taken this first intentional step. Women who only watch without acting. Music will hear the method, but it will not take root in their subconscious. But for the women who wrote reflection, music, everything that follows will have a massive psychological impact. So are you prepared? Excellent. If you wrote reflection, music, then you are ready for what follows. Let me first clarify something about the male psyche that most women do not realize. Music, and that most men themselves do not grasp. Carl Jung found that every man carries a feminine component. Music within him. He named it Thema. This is not figurative, not symbolic. It is a music, concrete psychological system that exists in every man. The Anima contains everything a man views in himself as feminine, and has therefore music pushed away from his conscious identity. His feelings, his fragility, his desire for deep intimacy. Music, his capacity to feel rather than just analyze. From the moment a young boy hears, "Boys don't cry or be tough or don't be weak," he starts to sever himself from portions of who he is. These portions do not vanish. Music, they drop into his unconscious, they become hisma. And here it becomes fascinating. This suppressed music is projected onto women, particularly onto the women he loves, but not onto all women in the same way. Most women trigger hisma only on the surface. They play a part. Music, they present a socially sanctioned version of womanhood. His persona interacts with their persona and everything remains shallow. Music, these connections feel safe for him, easy, manageable. But then he encounters you and you are different. You are not acting a part. You are not feminine only in a theatrical way. You navigate the world with an emotional sincerity that is uncommon. You are integrated, complete, or at least moving intentionally toward that state of being. Jung would say you have progressed on your path of individuation. You don't hide behind a facade. You don't perform femininity. You inhabit it from the inside out. Music, and that is precisely where the conflict begins. Because when a man meets a woman who is truly whole within herself, something profound and disturbing occurs in his psyche. Hisma doesn't just move. It completely wakes up in your presence. He sees everything he has denied in himself, the feelings he never permitted himself to experience, the vulnerability he learned to hide, the desire for depth he once labeled as weakness. You become the living mirror of the segments of his soul that he has never dared music to visit. And it is in that moment that terror arises. Should many women misinterpret this fear? They think he is scared of commitment, emotionally unavailable. Music is still hung up on a past partner or simply uneasy with closeness. But the truth, music resides much deeper. He is not fleeing from you. He is fleeing from himself, from the facets of his internal world that your music presence pulls to the surface. Jung described this encounter with thee as one of the most frightening yet life-changing experiences in a man's existence. It is terrifying because it compels him to doubt the identity he has spent years building. He discovers he is not only logic, music management, and power. He is emotion, desire, and gentleness. For a man who equated power with emotional suppression and built his entire self-image around being in charge, This realization is deeply unsettling, so he withdraws not because his affection is weak, but because her music is too powerful. The deeper his attachment, the more intensely you wake his anima. Her music, the more his anima wakes, the more clearly he views his own lack of wholeness, and the more he sees his incompleteness, the larger his fear becomes. Music distance becomes his natural defense. This is the psychological system most women never witness and most relationship coaching completely misinterprets. You've been told a music to give him space, but in his internal world, that only validates his fear, confirming that moving away is safe and that, hey music, he does not need to confront anything. You've been told to be mysterious, but mystery works only on men who still exist in shallow projections. A man whose anima you have awakened cannot music chase. He is already buried, trying to escape his own emotional depth. You've been told to seem detached and unemotional, but your sincerity, him music, is the very thing that touched him, the very thing that echoed within him in a way nothing else music ever did. If you suddenly start to act out emotional coldness, ham music, you lose the spirit that attracted him to you in the beginning. A Jungian expert would say ham music that this is the moment when you step down from your path of growth and fall back into a false persona. And the moment you do that, you become like every other woman in his history, music is safe, but without significance. So the real challenge becomes, what is the answer? Music, how do you handle a situation in which your greatest asset, your emotional completeness, ham music, is also the very thing that drives him away? This is, hey music, exactly what must be understood. Now, first you must recognize that there are three categories of men, and each reacts differently to a woman like you. The first category is the man who is entirely trapped in his persona. His music is buried so far down that he doesn't even know it exists. When his music triggered, he flees and never looks back. He is not ready for change. The second category is the man who knows his exists a music but dreads it. He pulls away but returns in cycles. He wants to be with you but cannot maintain intimacy. Ham music, he loves you but fears what you bring out in him. This man stands on the threshold of transformation. The process of transformation requires something very specific from your essence. The third category of male is the individual who has already commenced the journey of individuation. One who recognizes his Anima and has successfully woven his emotional reality into his being. This is the man who does not retreat. He gravitates toward you precisely because of your profound music depth, not in spite of it. The vital question remains, which version of man are you currently encountering? Music, more importantly, how do you navigate a situation with the second type? This is the man who cherishes you yet simultaneously flees, who draws near only to shut down. Music, who experiences profound feelings but chooses emotional isolation. This is where the Jungian perspective becomes remarkably potent, because the solution is neither to abandon the connection nor to pursue him. It is something far more metamorphic. It is the realization that you cannot serve as his clinician, but you can serve as his reflection. There is a highly specific method for achieving this, one that shifts the entire dynamic. Before addressing that, you require tangible evidence, practical markers that confirm you have indeed activated Hisma and that he is escaping from his own shadow rather than from you. Jung identified 3 particular behaviors that manifest in a man when he is awakened by a woman. If you detect these indicators, you can be certain that you are not the flaw in the equation. You are the catalyst for a confrontation high music he must have with his own soul. The initial sign is the oscillation between idealization and withdrawal. A man whose anima has been stirred will simultaneously put you on a pedestal music and create distance. He might remark that you are unlike anyone he has ever known or that you perceive his soul in an unprecedented way. Yet frequently by the following day or week he retreats into emotional coldness and becomes unreachable. Most women experience a sense of panic wondering what mistake they committed. However, nothing is actually broken. What has occurred is that his projection of the anima became too potent and overwhelming. Jung elucidated that when a man idealizes a woman, he is casting all the unlived and suppressed elements of his own psyche onto her. He no longer sees a mere human. He perceives a goddess, a muse, or the literal embodiment of the perfect feminine spirit. This eventually becomes intolerable because on an unconscious level he, feels that if she is this entire, then his own fragmented nature is laid bare. Distancing serves as his method for dialing back the music intensity of that projection. It is not a calculated game or manipulation, but a fundamental psychological defense. What truly signifies importance is this: if he returns repeatedly, if he creates space but always gravitates back, then he is a man who internally yearns to integrate Hisma. He simply lacks the vocabulary to request your assistance. The second indicator is emotional saturation. He expresses sentiments like being overwhelmed by what you stir within him, or feeling sensations he cannot govern. Women frequently interpret this through a lens of romance or anxiety. But what he is actually admitting is that you have activated his shadow. In the realm of Jungian psychology, music, the shadow, is not synonymous with evil. It is merely everything we have music buried because we deemed it unacceptable. For men, this shadow is often tethered to vulnerability and a craving for genuine soul-level intimacy rather than just physical closeness. When he confesses he cannot control his feelings, he is truly acknowledging that his entire psychological fortress is crumbling in your presence. This is a monumental occurrence that does not happen with music, just any individual. It only transpires when a woman is so authentic a music that she pierces through his persona to touch his core. The complication arises when women respond with heightened emotion, attempting to soothe or reassure him, which often exacerbates the issue by confirming his greatest music fear, that he is weak and has lost his autonomy. A man who believes he has lost his grip will instinctively fight to reclaim it, music, usually through emotional withdrawal. Therefore, when he admits to being overwhelmed, music, acknowledge the truth of it, but do not pursue him. As Jung might suggest, music allow him to navigate his own individuation. You can bear witness music to it, but you cannot perform the labor for him. The third sign is a rhythmic cycle of proximity and retreat. This is music, the most nuanced yet revealing evidence. He moves closer. The bond intensifies and music, authentic intimacy, blossoms. He reveals hidden aspects of music of himself. Yet at the height of this connection, he pulls away. Not entirely, but he becomes superficial as communication grows brief. He remains physically present, music, but his emotional depth evaporates. Jung would interpret this as a flight back into the persona. Music, he retreats to the socially safe version of himself because the true self you witness feels too perilous. Music, if you observe closely, you will see that during this period of retreat, he is conducting a test. He is evaluating whether you will accept his surface-level persona or if you truly love his wholeness. Most women fail this assessment by trying to force the music depth back out, asking what is wrong. This is the least effective response because it signals to him that his emotional transparency is required for your stability, which reinforces his fear of being responsible for another's well-being. The Jungian reaction is entirely different. You acknowledge the retreat and respect it, but you do not discard your own depth. You do not diminish your light to match his shallow state. You stay whole and authentic, remaining tethered to your own soul without demanding he meet you there. This defines the boundary between being needy and being a mirror. Needing says, "Come back to me," while being a mirror says, "I am here in my depth, and you know where to find me when you are ready." Music, this is where the true alchemy occurs. A man whose anima is awake cannot endure superficiality for long when music knows genuine depth is accessible. He may attempt to stay away or convince himself he doesn't need it, but his spirit hungers for the integration that only this bond provides. Consequently, he returns not because of manipulation but because his own psyche demands it. With every return, music, he descends a bit further into his own truth. This only functions if you do not lose your own identity in the process. If you abandon your wholeness to secure him or hide your truth to make music him feel comfortable, you destroy the very essence that could have sparked his transformation. Music, these signs offer you the psychological distance to realize his struggle is not about you. It is music, his journey, and you can observe it without being consumed by it. Eventually, every woman asks how long she should wait. Jung believed that individuation cannot be coerced. Music, it must be a choice. You can provide the mirror and embody what wholeness looks like, but you cannot walk the miles for him. The harsh reality is that some men would prefer to stay fragmented rather than face the terror of music becoming whole. These men will circle you in infinite loops of coming and going, but music never truly arriving. They cannot stay because loving you requires them to face themselves, which they are not yet prepared to do. To distinguish between a music man in genuine growth and one merely circling his fears, look for movement over stagnation. A man in true transformation, her music evolves even if slowly. He becomes gradually more vulnerable and takes ownership of his inner world rather than blaming a music you for his discomfort. He seeks his own answers through reflection or therapy rather than expecting you to perform his emotional labor. Be radically honest about what you see. Music, your own wholeness, is not a bargaining chip. You are not destined to sacrifice your spirit so a man can avoid his own growth. Jung noted that the ultimate tragedy is not failing to reach wholeness, but abandoning it for a mere illusion of connection. Do not betray your own depth to make him a music stay. He will only respect you less for giving up your strength. The most powerful path, music, is to remain entirely yourself and let him choose. This radical loyalty to your own soul will music attract those ready for the journey and repel those who are not, ensuring you are not just settling for any connection, but for one music that is truly whole. You are searching for the individual who is prepared to walk the journey alongside you. Jung referred to this profound connection as the alchemical marriage, representing the union of two spirits who have both achieved their own internal completeness. This is not a state that can be manufactured or forced through effort. Instead, music, it emerges organically when two partners commit themselves fully music to their own individuation. Consequently, the primary concern should not be centered on how you might retain him. The genuine inquiry is how you can preserve your own wholeness while granting him the necessary room to discover his own direction. The solution is actually more straightforward than it appears. Lead your life with purpose. Continue your pursuit of self-actualization. Remain deeply anchored in your own inner world. If he is indeed the appropriate partner, and if he is genuinely prepared for a true transformation, his own essence will eventually draw him back toward you. This return will happen not because of any manipulation on your part, nor because you sat by in passive expectation, but because two individuals gravitating toward wholeness possess a natural affinity for one another. Should he choose not to return, he has actually offered you an invaluable gift. He has liberated you to eventually encounter the man who is truly ready for you. Rest assured, there are men in the world who have successfully integrated their music, who recognize their own shadow, and who treat the process of individuation with the gravity it deserves. These are the men searching for a woman of your caliber. Music, they seek a woman who does not retreat from her own complexity. They look for a woman who embodies her completeness, music, rather than just discussing it. They want a partner who realizes that authentic love never demands that she diminish herself. When you choose to stand in this space of self-reliance, music, you stop treating love as a pursuit and start seeing it as a reflection. You realize that the alchemical marriage is mirrored in your daily existence, where your inner strength and your outer actions become one. This shift in perspective changes everything because you are no longer operating from a place of lack or fear. Music, you are operating from an overflow of your own being. This is the magnetic power of a woman who has claimed her own soul. It is a quiet, steady radiance that doesn't need to shout to be noticed. It is a presence that naturally filters out those who are looking for a project or a distraction. And instead it calls out to those who are capable of meeting you at your depth. You begin to understand that the space between you and another person is not a void to be filled with anxiety, but a sacred ground where growth occurs. By honoring that space, music, you honor the divine timing of your own evolution. You are not just waiting for a partner. You are refining the vessel of your life so that it can contain a love of significant magnitude. Remember that the journey of individuation is solitary, but never lonely. For as you become more of who you truly are, you become more connected to the pulse of the universe itself. This connection is what makes you unshakable. It is what allows you to hold your head high, knowing that your worth is not a variable dependent on another man's readiness, but a constant truth that you carry within yourself. To step into this realization is to embrace the paradox of independence and intimacy. Music, you must understand that your personal transformation is the very thing that makes you visible to a man of substance. This is not about self-improvement as a tactic for attraction, but about self-realization as a way of life. When you stop monitoring his progress and start tending to your own fire, you radiate a different kind of frequency. You become a woman who is not easily swayed by the winds of uncertainty, because your foundation is built on the bedrock of your own psyche. This internal stability is what Jung often described as the center of the personality, and it acts as a compass music for the right kind of partnership. You